All right, so hello everyone. Some of you know us, some of you don't. But I do want to take a couple of seconds just at the start to quickly plug the company that both myself and Markel founded, AoE Creative.
Hello everyone, thank y'all for coming to our first keynote. We are AoE Creative. We are a brand marketing agency that focuses on esports, gaming, and nerd culture.
And we're pretty similar to most talented, I like to say talented, brand marketing agencies out there, but for one big difference. We built our careers and come from the gaming and esports world. And both myself and Markel cumulatively have over 25 years of experience in this industry.
Yeah, so we've had the opportunity of working with some of the largest and well-known brands within the gaming and esports industry. Here are a few.
And in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we just want to sort of tell a story and drive home something that we feel really passionate about. And that's that we as esports and us in the industry can really drive marketing and branding to another level. So I want to kick off with a quick analogy. As a marketer, I love analogies. Today we drove in, we're actually office in Frisco, so not too far, on some very questionable Dallas roads. Dallas itself and Dallas-Fort Worth area is probably one of the fastest growing and vibrant cities in America. And along the way, this road is filled with cars of all different shapes and sizes.
More like 3 shapes and 3 sizes and 3 colors. You have a sedan, SUV, and because you're in Texas, of course, a lot of trucks. All of them in black, white, or silver.
And what car do you drive, Markel?
I have a black sedan, but don't judge me. I'll be upgrading in the future.
So think back to your drive here or your Uber from the airport or however you got here. How many of the vehicles that you were driving alongside on the road did you really notice? And the ones that you did notice, I doubt they were SUVs or sedans. That's pretty synonymous with the esports and gaming industry as a whole. We're on this road and probably one of the most vibrant and exciting industries in entertainment in the world. And from what we've seen so far, many brands are quite happy in creating sedans and SUVs, and they're not understanding why they're not standing out, when really we should be creating Teslas and Bugattis and hell, hover cars.
So we'll take this analogy a little bit further, talk about other brands within this space, this large highway of esports and gaming that we know. So you see brands like ESL rebranding themselves, one of the largest tournament organizers in the world. G2 was one of the leading fast-growing esports teams in the world, and LEC, which is League of Legends European Championship Series. All of these brands understood that they need to do something different to shake up the industry and make sure that their brand stands out in this vast world of esports and gaming that everybody wants to be involved in. All of these understood that with their brand, it needs to stand out against the cars going down the highway in this industry of gaming and esports.
So there's more brands than ever before entering this industry. I know a number of you here are looking at how do I get into this world of esports. And as nerds, which is what we are, and gamers, we're in a unique position. We're no longer these kind of like basement dwellers. We're actually now cool. We even set the trends in many cases. And people from all walks of life are using gaming to make new friends, to learn new things, to challenge themselves, and to challenge their imagination. A good example of that is the current entertainment industry awards. So the Oscars, just to give you an example, hit about 29 million viewers live on their broadcast platforms, whereas the Video Game Awards hit over 45 million viewers worldwide. And that's largely due to the fact that they're utilizing modern broadcast platforms and social media trends.
So you have to understand that in this industry, there's no room for mediocre. This gaming and esports world, there's definitely a large land of opportunity. Opportunities to grow, build your brand, be yourself. You see those that have came up overnight and become superstars. But this is not easy. You have to make sure that you're building a brand for yourself that stands out, that does something different than the typical esports team or the typical esports brand within this community. You're going to look for millions and millions of people within the industry that you're trying to get eyes on your brand while fighting hundreds and thousands of different brands in the industry that want to get those same audience.
So, as an industry of brave entrepreneurs, which is, I hope, what we all are, we have this opportunity to really drive the narrative forwards. Esports and gaming as a whole, we believe, is going to be much more demanding and successful in the future for the entertainment world. And we're going to be able to drive more sponsorships, more interests, and media rights, things that are right now only belonging to movies and sports industry. And we, as a group, understand young people and the young audience much, much better than anyone else has before. This audience has the mind of a technology person. They love technology, but they have the heart of a community. And we have the power to actually shape that narrative moving forwards.
As you started to see, a lot of brands are starting to understand that they need to change their look, feel, style within the community. They have to understand that being a cool brand is not it anymore. You have to be more than just something that looks good on screen. So a lot of these brands are taking the opportunity to look at themselves, reevaluate who their brand is, who they want to be, how they want to be perceived, and how they want to be seen when they start talking to B2C, to B2B companies about their brand, their company, and where they want to be in the industry.
So let's narrow it down to esports teams, because it's a pretty wide subject right now. Esports teams are pretty easy to use as an example because there's so many, and they are definitely some of the best and worst branding in the space. So esports teams are under a huge amount of pressure, more than almost anyone else. They have to raise capital, they have to get noticed against hundreds of other esports teams all doing the same thing. And those that are most stressed of all are those as part of the franchise leagues that are in some cases new, some cases old. The main franchises obviously are the LCS, the Overwatch League, and the newly formed Call of Duty League. And unfortunately, when you're building a new franchise, one of the first things that goes out of the window is brand and marketing, especially in Season 1. I mean, we don't really blame them. They just spent $20+ million on a team, and most of the time they're just working out how the hell I'm supposed to put a team together for Season 1, let alone make it look cool. But that leads, unfortunately, to brand as a second thought. And brand as a second thought leads to bad habits. Bad habits like paying $100 for someone on the internet to make a cool logo for you. But that logo doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any connection to your brand itself. It just looks cool.
And so going into that, you want to talk about the brands and building that foundation. Most teams within this space or businesses within the gaming esports world haven't really thought about building that brand foundation and making it sound and structured. The idea of what exactly is your logo, more than just something my friend designed for me. Does it mean anything? Does it actually say anything to your audience? Does it represent exactly what you want to represent to your brand, to your audience, to your community? Is it too complex? Have you thought about how exactly does it work when you put it on merchandise, when you give it out as apparel? Is the typography good? Is it legible? Can you read it? Going into look and feel of what do you do on social media? Most teams get into this space and all they do is, hey, we created a cool design, it looks good, but it doesn't say a story. It doesn't express exactly who you are, what you want to do, and how you want to be perceived. And then, of course, voice, something that a lot of people don't actually think about when creating a brand. How do you speak to your audience? How do you speak to the people? How do you let them know what you want them to know and also be able to speak that same language to their friends, their family, and anybody else that wants to be a part of that group or your brand or your team? What you start noticing is when you look online and you look at some of these teams, you can tell that a lot of them are saying that we cut corners. We don't fully know our audience. We don't fully know our brand. So that comes to the first thing, which I've noticed, at least especially working with AoE Creative and working with a lot of clients within this space, most people don't think about actually going through a full creative brief. They don't think about all the stuff before you actually start designing anything. Few brands actually have this motive of knowing exactly who they are from the C-level all the way down to the intern. You want to make sure that whoever you are, you're building that out and telling that to everyone in your company. That way, that everyone there can tell that to your audience and your fan base. If you and your team all have different ideas of where you want to go and who you want to be, then how can the audience that you're trying to represent understand exactly who your brand is and how they want to represent you to everyone that they know?
So obviously, as Markel just pointed out, creating a new brand is pretty damn scary. And creating a unique brand even more so. But it's super important if you want to get ahead in this space and really make a mark. Branding is war. You have to establish a beachhead before you move forward. When we focus with clients, we talk more about their mentality, their motivation, their passion, and their drive, and the feelings of their brand, more than what they think is cool or what they think is not. And for us, the creative brief process is a requirement, not an option. And that allows us to put ourselves in the shoes of our client and build a brand that they really, really want and love. So let's take a look at a brand that's doing it right. 100 Thieves was formed in 2016, or at least officially formed in 2016. And they burst into the scene. And they had an initial problem which we call the audience dilemma. The audience dilemma is where you're jumping into a new space in a new world, and you have to fight for an audience, or at least capture some of the audience of other teams that may be more established in the space. So for the 100 Thieves, it was the LCS. So how did they do that? Well, first of all, winning. It's sad to say, or maybe not sad to say, but winning is one of the best marketing strategies. And 100 Thieves came second in their first spring split for LCS, which helped them greatly. The second of all, it was a fresh new brand and led by a super charismatic and popular CEO. We call it the nade shot effect. And finally, and probably most importantly, they really, really understood their target audience. This brand focused heavily on this hypebeast, premium, young male audience. And their goal was to really generate this lifestyle and clothing brand around the original goals that Nadeshot had when he first thought of 100 Thieves. More recently, they've transitioned and showed the flexibility of their brand by transitioning into content creation. The focus on content allows them to tap into the wider gaming audience, as I think we've already discussed in some of the other panels. And 100 Thieves has really allowed them to build their brand out within the content space.
What's crazy with us is a lot of times when we go to different clients and businesses and we speak to them, a lot of them jump and say, hey, we want to be 100 Thieves. What they mean to say is they want the same influence 100 Thieves had in the short time period that they were actually able to activate their fan base, bringing out their new teams and coming out to the stage as a new esports brand. With that, these teams need to understand and these brands need to understand that they need to create their own pathway. It's not about being 100 Thieves. It's about being you. It's about being your own person, your own brand, and creating that roadway for yourself and everyone else. It's for everyone else to follow you and not for you to follow another brand or another style. It's to learn from their engagement. With this, you think about brand persona, something that a lot of brands are starting to understand more and more. Even these multi-million, multi-billion-dollar brands are understanding that, hey, if we speak with our brand as a person, we can do much more and represent much more to the community than us just being ourselves or being a robot within the industry on social media. As you can tell, again, those get the most engagements. Those get the most looks. Those are the ones where people feel attached to your brand and feel like, hey, I can actually talk to you, or I can have a joke, or you sound like my friends or my family. That means a lot to you, and it means a lot to your brand, and it means even more to your audience when you have that authentic feel. So let's look at a brand that is trying to do something different within the industry for their brand and their esports.
Summoners, I'm Nicole LaPointe Jamison, CEO of Evil Geniuses. Before spearheading the oldest brand in esports, my background was in turning around distressed businesses. This makes myself and EG the natural choice to putting out the raging dumpster fire that is North American League of Legends.
Like their brand or not, they're doing something different within the industry, doing something a lot of other teams are afraid to do. embracing the idea of being evil, being bad, being the bad guy or girl within the brand. They're doing stuff that other teams should be looking into as what are ways where I can step out and do something that no one else is doing within the space.
So as marketers and brand designers, I guess, we face a number of problems. Two of the most effective or most drastic of those problems is that marketers and people experiencing marketing don't really know how to value what they do, and that especially when you talk about community building. And the second is that people don't understand the difference between marketing and sales. One of the more interesting motivational discussions I had was when I was working with a team that shall not be named, and someone told me that this team, or esports teams in general, don't need marketing. They just need to win. This team was pretty much bottom of the barrel at the time, doing almost loss after loss, and yet still outselling all the other teams on merchandise, community activations, and in-game sales. That was clearly their winning record and nothing to do with the marketing around it. Now, community building, unfortunately, is one of the most overlooked areas of marketing and building a brand. We really, really hate that because this is probably one of the most passionate and involved communities in the world.
With that, most teams do jump and go into community content, which makes sense, right? You want people to understand who your brand is, what your brand does, and show them that you're also a gamer too. So that goes to player interviews, sponsored deliverables, podcasts, and a multitude of other things. Things is, for your brand, you want to do more than just the basic stuff that everybody's done. In this space, everybody wants to copy something someone else done. But you can't do the same thing you did 10 years ago. Montages and video content like that, your mom, your brother, your sister could do that on Twitch right from the console, the PC. So you need to do something that's more engaging. You want to make sure that you're building your brand, building your story. If you created a strong brand foundation from the beginning, you have the opportunity of using that and utilizing that in everything that you build. From bringing it to your players, building their brand, but also showing the pillars and values that you guys have and ideas, to what you do with your sponsors and showing them that they understand gaming, you understand their community, and you want them to merge properly.
So let's look at some community marketing done right.
Yo! Oh, look at the hologram too. Yo! Yo! Oh my God! Yo! Imagine these are real concerts. Oh my God!
So I'm not sure I need to introduce Courage there, but that is Courage. He was experiencing a set from the EDM artist Marshmallow in the game Fortnite last February. And what's really amazing about this particular community activation is that it hit over 10 million simultaneous viewers. This makes it by far the largest concert ever, and it was held within a video game. Now, if that wasn't community marketing, then I don't know what is.
So what about being in it to win it?
Yeah, so winning as a strategy, right? Let's look at that concept. So first of all, if you're not playing the game to win, you probably shouldn't even be in the game in the first place. But secondly, marketing isn't second to winning, it's parallel. Winning isn't something you can necessarily guarantee, but good marketing will allow you to adapt and evolve and do well with that winning in the future.
And as a big Cowboys fan, I understand loss, unfortunately, especially this season, right? But because of a legacy in the past and the things I've done with the community and everything through my childhood, I am still here representing for my team, looking for that win.
And obviously for a team, winning is pretty obvious, but there's different forms of winning and using brands. So, for example, if you have a video game, winning could be selling a really, really large amount of that game, or having a great content creator pick up your game and broadcast it. or potentially making great use of a suddenly loved character like Baby Yoda. So the trick here is not to win as such, it's how do you capitalize when you do win? And that's what great marketing is.
So we want to talk about the community and being a part of the community and marketing to your actual fan base. Most teams honestly haven't thought too much into that. They're more about, hey, I want to win, I want to look the coolest, I'll put content out. But what can you do with your actual community? Those are the people that are actually representing you at all times. They're the ones telling their friends and family about you and why they should be involved, or why they should watch your team play, or why they should actually check out your content. What you need to do with that, honestly, is just pay attention to your community. It's very simple, especially in this industry. All of us are very vocal about the things that we want and the things that we want to see within the industry. And honestly, it doesn't cost that much. Some of the stuff that we've done with the Houston Outlaws, we created the three first world events with the Houston Outlaws, and most of that stuff was still under 5K.
Yeah, and a good example, going back to the car analogy, is I drive a Jeep Wrangler, which is super English, obviously. And when I bought a Jeep Wrangler, I didn't realize that everyone else who drives a Jeep Wrangler, for some reason, waves at you on the road.
It's a head nod to let each one know that neither one of them are going off-road.
I hate him every time he says that. But it's great community marketing by Jeep. They've actually taken one of the simplest gestures and they've seeded it into every single bit of marketing they do. Even their television ads with famous movie stars show them waving to another Jeep Wrangler driving by. So they're perpetuating that community feel.
It's about being included. The community is about having a sense of belonging. The best brands do this, and they make sure that everything they do builds a community around their brand more so than their product. It's about being with a whole bunch of like-minded people that think the same way as you, feel hype about the same things you are hype about, and want to be involved with the same things that get you excited in gaming, esports, or any brand.
So what do we want you to take away from this talk?
Regardless if it's with AoE or not, we want you to push the boundaries. We want you to do something different within the industry, change the game. We dare you to disrupt.
Yeah, and that state of mind isn't anything to do with being young or old or male or female or what gender you are, or race, sorry. It's using that opportunity to really shape the industry that we have been given. Let's show them how it's done.
At AoE, we don't just build brands, we look to build legacies. Thank you.